The year is 1528. Narvaez's fleet has broken apart along the Florida coast. Hunger and storms drive the survivors westward in makeshift rafts planks, nailed together, patched with horsehide, barely seaworthy. They paddle with desperation into the Gulf, carried by currents they cannot master. Days pass without water. Men drink seawater and collapse in the bilges. A raft overturns in the surf, bodies washing up and vanishing in the waves. Out of 600 who had once landed with Narvaez, fewer than 100 cling to life as storms scatter them across the unknown coast of Texas. Cabeza de Vaca drags himself onto a barren sandbar. His clothes are shredded, his skin blistered by salt. He looks back and sees nothing but wreckage, splintered timbers, helmets, and drowned horses rolling in the tide. Those who stagger ashore fall senseless in the dunes. At dawn, the survivors huddle, counting their number. Less than 50. They find no food, no water, no ships. Only endless shore and tangled marshes stretching inland. The Conquistador's banners are gone. All that remains is wreckage and the will to endure. Ahead lies a continent they do not know, peopled with nations they cannot name. For Álvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, the long odyssey begins here, shipwrecked, stripped of command, and forced to walk into the wilderness with nothing. The men push inland, stumbling through thickets and salt marsh. They gnaw on roots, scrape mussels from rocks, catch snakes when they can. Many fall sick from swamp water. By winter, half are gone. Those who remain wander along the coastal bays, barefoot and ragged, until they meet the people of the land. The Karankawa watch them from canoes tall, bow-armed, painted in ash. The Spaniards expect arrows, but instead hear shouts, "Bring them in!" Canoes slide across the water. What begins as rescue becomes captivity. The survivors are divided among villages, kept alive but bound to hard labor, hauling firewood, digging for roots, scraping hides. They are no longer captains or cavaliers, but beasts of burden. Cabeza de Vaca is forced to gather reeds, carrying loads until his shoulders bleed. Escape is impossible. Men who try to flee collapse in the wilderness. Others beg to be killed and are refused. The captors want workers, not corpses. "We live like dogs," he later writes, "naked, thin, and scattered among the huts." Years pass this way. Spaniards who once carried lances now drag baskets. Their numbers shrink again. Disease, exhaustion, despair. Of the original hundreds, only a handful survive the winters. But in captivity, something shifts. Winter leaves many sick, both captives and captors. Fever spreads through the huts, and the Karankawa turn to their healers. Cabeza de Vaca watches. They chant, draw smoke over the patient, and breathe upon the skin. Sometimes the sick recover, sometimes they die, but the ritual matters. One night, desperate, the villagers demand that the Spaniards heal. Cabeza de Vaca has nothing, no herbs, no knowledge, but he remembers the sign of the cross. He places his hands on the fevered, breathes gently, whispers prayers in Spanish and Latin. "In the name of God, be well," he says. The next morning, the patient rises. Word spreads quickly. More are brought to him, children with sores, hunters wounded, the dying. He repeats the ritual, cross, breath, whispered words. Some recover, and the belief takes hold. From slave, he becomes something else, not free, but no longer despised. Estevanico, the North African among them, joins in the healing. The four survivors, Cabeza de Vaca, Dorantes, Castillo, and Estevanico, are soon seen as men touched by unseen power. Where once they hauled loads, now they are escorted from village to village. The people bring food, gifts, and pleas. The Spaniards are carried across rivers, sheltered, even revered. Survival has turned on its head. Stripped of weapons, they find authority in faith and theater. The four set out together, no armor, no horses, no swords, only gourds, woven mats, and faith. Their path bends west and north, following the trails of trade and migration. They walk for years, through thorn deserts where water lies hidden in cactus, across plains so vast they see herds of bison darkening the horizon, over mountains where snow blinds their eyes and strips their feet raw. At night they sleep under skins or in the huts of strangers. Each village awaits them not as beggars but as healers. They blow upon the sick, cross themselves, and pray. Estevanico learns the songs of the people, speaking in more tongues than the Spaniards can follow. The four gather followers as they move, sometimes hundreds walking with them, carrying torches, bringing offerings. They witness what no Spaniard has written before: the rituals of hunters, the trade of turquoise and shells, the migrations of nations across the land. Cabeza de Vaca takes note, later recording them in detail. He is no longer conqueror, but chronicler. Years pass like this. The Spaniards themselves become legends, wandering between worlds. Their numbers never increase, but their reputation does. People see them not as invaders, but as prophets in rags. The old identities treasurer, captain, slave fall away. Cabeza de Vaca writes that he lived as a naked man among naked men, moving by gift and trust. Each village they enter, the people come forward with offerings. Some bring food, others children to be healed. The Spaniards no longer ask, they are expected. When a cure succeeds, the crowd shouts, "The children of the sun." When it fails, the mourners still thank them. Estevanico walks at the front, signaling with gourds painted in white crosses, drawing respect wherever they go. Dorantes and Castillo keep the rituals alive, crossing themselves over the sick. And Cabeza de Vaca, who once tallied royal accounts and weighed treasure, writes of visions, faith, and survival. By now they are treated less as men than as figures of power. Some call them healers, others prophets. In one village, they are given command of feasts. In another, they are led in processions, followed by drums and songs. The conquistador's quest for riches has dissolved into something stranger, a pilgrimage across a continent, guided by faith and necessity. But at last, the horizon changes. Rumors harden into truth. Other Spaniards are near soldiers, horsemen, men who do not wander as beggars but take captives in chains. On the edge of northern Mexico, the four finally meet men who speak their own tongue. At first, they cannot believe it, ragged figures in animal skins calling out in Spanish. The horsemen stare, unsure whether they are looking at shipwrecked ghosts or madmen. Cabeza de Vaca and his companions are led into camp. They sit before slavers, Spaniards, who scour the land, capturing native people to sell in chains. Around them, men and women seized from villages cry out, begging the healers for protection. The reunion is bitter. After 8 years wandering, the four are not welcomed as heroes, but as curiosities. The slavers demand the natives who follow them be handed over. Cabeza de Vaca refuses. For the first time in years, he is back among his own countrymen and finds them crueler than the strangers who once enslaved him. The journey is over, yet the transformation is clear. The conquistador who set out to claim lands for crown and cross now defends the people he once expected to conquer. Under escort, they march south toward the Spanish towns of Mexico. Villagers gather to watch as these wild figures pass barefoot prophets with long beards, leading followers who still call them healers. When they finally arrive, dressed in borrowed clothes, they are unrecognizable. 10 years earlier, they had landed in Florida with 600 men. Now, 4 return worn thin, changed utterly, carrying no gold, only stories. In Spain, Álvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca presents himself before the crown, not as a conqueror, but as a survivor. He sets down his memories in La Relación, 1542, the first European book written about what is now the United States. His words astonish readers. Instead of triumph and treasure, he describes years of captivity, wandering, healing, and visions. He tells of peoples unknown to Europe, Karankawa, Coahuiltecan, Jumano, each with their rituals, their foods, their trades. He records bison on the plains, great rivers, deserts crossed barefoot. More startling than geography is his tone. Cabeza de Vaca condemns cruelty against natives, urging that they be treated with justice. He writes of his companions, especially Estevanico, the Moroccan slave who walked as an equal prophet beside him. It is a chronicle not of empire's rise, but of a man stripped to nothing, reshaped by a land he could neither master nor escape. His book circulates across Europe, puzzling those who expect tales of gold and glory. Some dismiss him as eccentric, others see a prophet touched by God. Centuries later, historians read it as one of the strangest, most human accounts of early America. Cabeza de Vaca never conquered an empire, yet he crossed one on foot, with no army, no wealth, no weapons. His conquest was survival. His weapon was belief. His legacy a story of transformation. From shipwreck to slave, healer to chronicler, his odyssey remains unmatched. In the age of conquistadors, he was the man who conquered nothing, yet walked further than them all.